Romero,
Present.
Mr. Sullivan. Sorry, Trustee Dryden. I'm sorry, Trustee Nowak
Here.
and Trustee Dryden. Okay, she's not in attendance as of yet. And then Dr. Ramirez. All right, Ms. Peterson. Okay, and Ms. Torres. Okay, present. So can I get a motion for the adoption of the agenda? Can I get a second? Okay, all those in favor of adopting the agenda as presented? Aye. Okay, 4-0. So the first action discussion item A is the consideration of the approval of the following board resolution 21-22-17, continuing Board of Trustee authority to hold virtual meetings pursuant to Assembly Bill 361 open meetings, state and local agencies teleconferences rules. Can I get a motion for approval of the consideration?
I motion to approve the consideration.
Second the motion.
I have a second. Any discussion?
No, we looked at legal, we got a legal opinion and the board can approve at the beginning of a meeting for 30 days in effect. That's why we placed the item at the beginning of the meeting. So it'll be 30 days as of today. So. If the board would like to rescind that motion or not allow that motion.
Just so you guys know, you're talking, nobody can hear anybody.
So Krista made the motion, so we'll rescind that. Is anybody else willing to make the motion to continue the board resolution 21-22-17, continuing on the virtual meeting? Okay,
Second the motion.
and thank you. Okay, any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the approval of the board resolution 21-22-17, continuing the Board of Trustees authority to hold virtual meetings pursuant to Assembly Bill 361, open meeting, state and local agencies teleconferences. All those in favor? Aye. Okay, approved. 4-0. Okay, do we have any public comment on closed sessions? No? Okay, so closed session. The following items: personnel as authorized by Government Code 54957, and we're going to discuss public employee and superintendent's evaluation, also authorized by Government Code 54957, and discuss existing and potential litigation. So at this time, we're going to adjourn to closed session. Meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. If everyone could rise and please face the flag. Okay, so first action item is the approval of the minutes. Can I get a motion for the approval of the minutes from last month's meeting on April 19th? Okay, motion approved. Any second?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, any discussion or corrections? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of approving the minutes from April 19th meeting? All those in favor? Aye. Aye. Minutes approved. Okay. All right. And do we have any audience cards to address the board? Okay. All right, hearing none, we'll move on to the superintendent's report.
Okay, well, good evening, board, members of the community. Excited to have people in the audience here today. We're very excited here to share with you my superintendent's report overall, but specifically, maybe we can just forward to, especially because we have a very important recognition here this evening, and I wanted to just start there. We have here in our midst somebody who's been very special to the Mesa community for well over 20, well, it's going to be 27 years. It's coming up on 27 years. Am I right, Irene? And can't say enough things, positive things about Irene, her contributions, her leadership. And obviously I only had these last couple of years to really get to know her, but they've been good ones. They've been hard ones. But I can honestly tell you that through this pandemic, Irene showed up every single day, showed up to work, showed up willing, was flexible, attentive, engaged, a professional. And that's not easy to do. And I can't speak enough just praise for her contributions, for what she's meant to this community. I don't know how many relatives and kids and grandkids she's had come through here. I don't have that number off the top of my head, but I know that it's like 1 or 2 degrees of separation from Irene and her circle of influence. And I think that's a beautiful thing that characterizes Mesa, but also really characterizes her contributions and her commitment to this community. So with that said, I want to invite her up to receive this plaque, and I'll read it to her. Mesa Union School District extends appreciation to Irene Ramirez in honor of 27 years of service and the dedication, enthusiasm, and generosity you have demonstrated as a mentor, colleague, and friend on the event of retirement from service. Given this day, May 2022. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well,
Has it
Steve,
been that
I
long?
know.
Thank you for everything. I've been for how many years of that? I don't know. Quite a
I've
few.
seen your kids.
I just
all
consider that all our kids.
It's nothing but the best
Well,
thing.
thank you. Thank you very
So
much.
Irene, I know you're not a person of too many words.
No, no.
And I'm gonna put you on the spot because this is your spotlight. This is your time to family and colleagues and friends here with you
Yeah.
at the community.
Well, my grandsons and my daughter are here. Malik and Jay and Delana, good colleague, Chris Midar. I've known him for a while. Annie, she's had my kids. Both of them, I think, right? Your grandkids. And Carolyn's been here for so long, very good friend. I don't know if you had my kids, my grandkids, not my kids, my grandkids. Yeah. You see how, I forget these things. And to all of you here, thank you very much. I really appreciate it, Stephen. I've seen all your kids come through school. Krista, I saw her since she was kindergarten, and it's been a pleasure. And it's been my second home. And I love it. And I'm gonna miss it, but it's time to go. Thank you. Thank you all.
I can't see her, but she's the best ever.
Sorry, Mrs. Nowak, can you repeat that?
No, I was just saying, I'm bummed that I couldn't be there because Miss Irene was like the best ever. So I loved her. Her and Jolana are like the power team.
Yes, yes. Well, she heard your comments.
She's the only one that could keep me in line and tell me to shut up and smack me in the corner, and I had to listen.
Well, Irene, once again, on behalf of all of us here at your second home, thank you. I'm very proud of being the person to give you this recognition, but obviously I'm speaking on behalf of an entire community, of our staff, of so many parents, families, and students, young people, not so young people that have come through here at this point that have expressed appreciation and will continue to express appreciation over the coming days, weeks, and months. And Irene has committed to making some cameos around Mesa in the near future, because obviously we always like having our extended family continue to join us in whatever ways they can. So thank you very much, Irene. And thank you all for supporting her, for being here. Glad we could make this an opportunity for you to celebrate as a family as well. Thank you.
I just doing math here. I think we started the journey together. Nathaniel started here when he was 3 years old. 94.
Oh, yeah, I started 95.
Yeah.
So we have the journey together.
And so that's been quite a journey together, and you're a part of it. Fine. Congratulations on retirement. I wish all so many happiness and free time you can have and spend it wisely. So happy. And thank you all for coming. She has been tremendous to us.
Thank you all. Thank you. Okay, so everybody leaves after the meeting. It's okay. Good to see you, Malik. So we also, I'll mention this, we also have another, next month, we will have another important celebration of a retirement as well. And we'll speak to that a little bit later in the agenda. That said, we're gonna turn our attention to some important matters having happened, just some reminders of some important celebrations that took place over the last couple of weeks that we're very proud of. First and foremost, we have we had a trip here to UCSB on April 21st. Over the last, as we have been able to reopen, we have certainly been more interested in looking at experiential opportunities off campus, opportunities to get our kids learning away from the classroom and in spaces that allow them to, just explore in a different way than they would otherwise. So this was a partnership Mrs. Jar put together and organized at UCSB. And it was a great opportunity. They visited the campus, they visited the labs, and they got out into the field and were, really exploring and studying in nature, in the elements. Next, I just wanted to highlight also that we had a build and engineer event. I mentioned that as an event last time we met in April, but now here, that was on a Saturday. We had 47 students and a number of our parent chaperones attend. And again, here an opportunity to extend learning, to explore careers, explore opportunities differently for our students. And this was middle school students, primarily 6 through 8. We had to do a couple of calls out to kind of widen the net, if you will, and we're going to continue to make sure that the communication, rolls out, and that's still an area that's been an area of focus, but continuously an area of growth. But we were very proud of our students. They represented us well, got a lot out of it, and a lot of enthusiasm. And it was a full day. They left here at 5:30 in the morning, gathered here between 5 and 5:30, and did not return until around 9 o'clock. Really didn't clear campus until 9:30. So a very big kudos to Mrs. Jar for the organization and for Mr. Eliseo Puga, who actually was the driver out there during this event. So very much a great thing. We also had and are continuing to hold and try to improve upon our quarterly awards assemblies. Really great turnouts, really great opportunities for our families to come together, celebrate our students. On this particular occasion, we had our county superintendent, Dr. Cesar Morales, join us. So there's just a picture there. I invited him to be part of the festivities. And as it's become customary, we take a large group photo at the end, giving us an opportunity to just all come together and for the parents to see their kids with their friends and their classmates. And then lastly, as far as events are concerned, we had, there are too many pictures that would not fit in a slide because we had a full week's worth of staff appreciation. And this is in a celebration of Teacher Appreciation Week, but they come in close alignment. So we have traditionally here celebrated at Mesa staff appreciation because we recognize the importance and value of all of our employees, as we just highlighted Mrs. Ramirez as contributors to the Mesa experience, to raising kids here as a school community. And so my appreciation really goes out to our PFO in particular that organized an entire farmers market to our broader community for their contributions and their donations to the PFO and to our staff, of course, in celebration. So we planned events throughout the week, and there was a lot of food, a lot of festivities throughout. But again, just a gesture of good faith and appreciation for the contributions and commitment of our staff. Turning our attention, we have, I've been messaging this, and I should have a draft in wait here very soon for the board to preview. We have a learner profile that we've been talking about now for many, many months. This process has come to a close from a design standpoint in terms of bringing together the elements of it, but we are looking to couch all of this in one document and bring it to the board in June. But I've been previewing this information with the board now for quite some time. And here's our learner profile. These are the aspirations, but more than aspirations, they are really our goals for students, that when they leave us, that they will have proficiency and be able to demonstrate these skills. And you see them here before you. Again, there's 6. Now that's the what. That's the what. The how is the next slide, which is the learning model. What areas will we focus on? And we want learning experiences that are personalized, authentic, competency-based, and inclusive and equitable. Those are the 4 pillars that hold up that big picture view of our students. And within that, we're going to be focusing right now, we've been focusing and will continue to focus on the personalization. And to put it all kind of together, this next graphic is there. This is just a mock-up. It's not a finished draft, but you see all of the elements in one space. So this is something that comes from some of the input of our design team. So I wanted to start to preview it here with the board with just something that graphically and puts it all into one place so that we can, really stand behind it, plan around it, and really put our best foot forward to a continued commitment to these goals and these commitments to our community. All right, today began CAS testing, and we experienced the state experienced glitches, significant ones last week. Fortunately, we began this week, so we got to bypass that. And today we experienced a couple of bumps here and there, but all in all, really a good environment for our students. We'll continue to double down on our efforts to provide them with that throughout this week and next, or the next 3 weeks, really, including this one. And you see there kind of a schedule for the week as far as how we will undertake the various components of the assessment. Just as a reminder to the community, these are grades 3 through 8 inclusive that are being assessed. In past years, the results have come by rather quickly. So I would expect that by end of year, we will probably start to see some results come our way. Okay. As we transition from I believe we transition as a community and more broadly as a country, from a pandemic to more of an endemic, we've seen, obviously we continue to take and stress the importance of many things, We continue to provide rapid testing, masking for any student or adult that requires it. We continue to track our numbers and advise as we come upon positive cases. I'm sorry, advise and notify. So, right now we continue to monitor more than anything else, but we are making our adjustments to normalizing our school experiences in keeping with the guidelines. And as we talk, and you'll hear more about this, or the board will hear more about this, facilities. So, I know that fencing doesn't look, appealing or whatnot, but this is huge improvement for us, because what is encased in those platforms now are the air conditioning units that have been secured and installed, not yet operational, but have been placed there. And so this first leg of the project is very much underway and will continue to roll even hopefully prior to the end of the school year with an aggressive time schedule for the opening of school this coming fall. And very excited. It's been a lot of hard work on a lot of different people's front and part. Tammy Peterson and Ms. Peterson, Mr. Dave Norris, Director of MOT, has been instrumental from the get-go. And obviously, a lot of hard work coordinating everything, schedules, day-to-day activities, and obviously work with the contractors to even get us to this place. So we're making good headway. And I just wanted to share that bit of news and information with the board and with the community. Lastly, attendance. We have our attendance here. We continue to kind of see an attendance plateau, if you will. It's been difficult on that front this whole year. We're certainly seeking to finish on a strong note and really making some strong plans for next year to how to more thoroughly and thoughtfully address matters of attendance. We know the value of in-seat time, and anyhow, we continue to monitor this, but obviously there are still broader conditions that are playing into our ability to reach the goals that we want to see. So we will continue to make this a priority as we close out the year and as we anticipate a new one. Lastly, upcoming events. Obviously, we have a CAS testing window. We have our PFO sponsored carnival for this coming Friday, sorry, May 20th. I was thinking about the fact that I volunteered for the dunk tank. And that's, if you heard about that, then please don't show up before 4:30. And then June 2nd, we have our spring music concert, which if the winter concert was any indication, will be a phenomenal event for our kids and families. So that concludes the superintendent's report.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Ramirez. Any questions for Dr. Ramirez?
Well, I'll just go like that. No, I'm just bouncing back and forth. Anyway, I'm grateful that you're doing the field trips, because it opens up the ability for the students to see a future. Having been on trips with students in the past, they had no dream. They couldn't see past their freshman year of high school. They didn't know that they could do things. And this really opens doors. And so I'm so grateful for these kind of trips. And I highly encourage them in the future, along with all the other field trips that we've got going on, because it helps expand the vision of all the students here at Mesa Union. That's what's very, very critically important.
Yes, and I totally agree with it. I love the fact that the school is taking them to universities and exposing them to higher education. I think that's phenomenal, and I support it 100%.
And thanks to all those that did all the work, because that's a lot of work.
Yeah, I thank you. I will accept that on behalf of our staff and our community. There's a lot of work that goes into coordinating these things, into outreach with partners. You'll hear more about that when we get to the LCAP. There's a lot of coordination. Mrs. Jar was at the center of both of those, so very much appreciative to her and thankful to her, but just to other staff as well who played a part in supporting that. Our drivers who make that, who work here on site, drive there, and sometimes drive back. All these things that just small but important sacrifices or big sacrifices that make a difference in the lives of students. And I couldn't agree with more. That's the intent, is to broaden horizons, to get students thinking about their possibilities and alternatives. And we want to continue down that path of strengthening those partnerships with our community partners, with our outside of community partners, public and private. So that is definitely a goal for us as we conclude the year and head into a new one. Thank you.
And then I'd like to just, I guess, remind, or I don't know how many people are, I think it's really just staff that's watching this, but I'm also very proud that our school promotes for CASP testing, engagement and involvement of our community, having our cheer tunnel on Tuesdays. So thank you for everybody who participated in that today, who really are encouraging and helping these kids start the day off right, reminding them that we give free breakfast. So if you don't get breakfast at home, that's something that the school district is providing, because we want them to start off the day on a good start, with full belly, ready to tackle all of these questions that are going to come their way. And I love that in a district, we're trying to promote that. It's free for everybody. Please make sure you have breakfast and have a smile on your day, on your face when you start the day. And I'm super duper excited about Tiger Fest. I'm excited we're bringing it back. I just was out there, Sandra was out there as well for the color run, and the kids love getting together for these community events. They love having fun with their friends out on the field. So I'm just so excited for Tiger Fest and can't wait to buy myself a ticket so that I can throw a baseball at the dunk tank for Dr. Romero.
4:30.
Absolutely. And please know to the board, any one of these events, it's an open invitation. So please, if you can make the time, if you can make yourself available, I know that things are very pressing. We've got other things, and I'm going to make it a greater priority to outreach to you personally, to bring you onto campus at a time that works around your schedule, so that you can see some of the day-to-day things that are making a difference in the lives of our students and in the overall fabric of Mesa.
Okay, thank you very much. So moving on, our next item is board members' reports and communications. We received a correspondence from the Ventura County Office of Education with regards to our second interim report, which was met with positive review. So thank you for doing all that, Tammy, and all the work to get us in good standing there. Any other reports, Brianna, that we received? Okay. Do the board members have any reports or communications from me outside meetings? Mr. Sullivan, anything there? Okay. And board members' interest or concerns? Anyone have an interest or concern they'd like to express at this time?
I have one. It's a question, and then we can lead into it. But I know STEAM Presents is coming up, correct? And then so I'm wondering what that date is and how we're showcasing that to our community.
Yeah, that date is coming up on Wednesday, June 1st. So we will certainly make that a priority to be able to notify our parents and community.
After school or later?
It's going to be after school. So we have it scheduled right now for 1 to 3:30. So it's earlier in the day. We will advertise that to the best of our abilities.
So STEAM Presents, as a reminder, is for the after school program to showcase some fun science and engineering and experiments, and then let the whole community of the school come and attend and kind of walk through this science fair kind of application where they get to play and learn through all of these different experiences. So I've been in the past. I will do my best to be there again on June 1st. But I think it's a fun event for the community to really see the different chemical processes, physical process, science, biological stuff that the kids are learning after school.
All right, thank you, Jamie. So any other interest or concerns? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to item 10, which is consent agenda. Can we get a motion for the approval of the consent agenda as presented?
A motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Okay, a second. Any discussion?
I just had a question on the student body fund. It appears just to be junior high related. Is that correct? Not the, because I know there is a student council that's in the lower grades, but this is just junior high.
Sorry, this one is, but we do have an elementary account as well.
Any other questions or discussion?
It's like the annual, oh, look at the numbers for the annual.
Yeah,
benefit.
I will have to circle back with Irene, because I want to say that in the past, I didn't look back to last year, whether we presented both, but I can circle back.
And if there is, we'll have to bring that up on the next consent agenda. Okay. Any other discussion, questions, or concerns? Okay. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda as presented, all those in favor? Aye. Okay, Krista, can see you there. Okay, so 5-0. All right, so moving on, the next item is the presentation, discussion of the LCAP, the Local Control and Accountability Plan. So we'll turn that over to Dr. Ramirez and Ms. Tammy.
That would be to me. Although Tammy's a partner in all of this, for sure. So thank you again. Last month, we presented on an overview of the LCAP. This time around, and specifically, we reviewed the results of the LCAP survey. This time around, we will be reviewing in part, the results of the Youth Truth survey. Now, I just want to continue to stress the importance of looking at these things holistically. There are macro trends that we want to be very attentive to, mostly trending in a very positive direction overall. But of course, we use multiple pieces of information. And then at the end, I will start to delineate some of the priorities that are coming to us by goal. Okay. So with that said, just a broad review. I'm just going to go very, very quickly through this. As far as process, we are in the renewal phase for concluding the year one of the LCAP 3-year cycle. Next slide, please. Again, here we're planning for 22-23 and taking multiple pieces of information and many points of input from our community, from community stakeholders. And I'll talk to you a little bit about our community stakeholders, namely students this time around. Next slide. Lcff funding, it's basically differentiated, although this slide is becoming a little bit less relevant than it was even a year ago or 2 years ago. The return to categorical or very initiative focused monies is starting to return, or has returned, I should say. So there are going to be dollars coming to our district that are specifically earmarked for very specific purposes. And so we will have to balance a lot of those funds. And that's one of the ways of many, in which Tammy and her staff become just critical to this process. Compliance, ensuring fidelity to the purpose of those funds. Okay, so to the needs assessment, I highlighted some of here are the LCAP goals, 1 through 4, and within that, the priorities that they serve, broader state priorities. Next slide, please. Again, the focus on multiple points of information, focusing on primarily on those 4 student groups. The ones in orange, the boxes in orange, are ones that we have discussed previously. The ones in green are ones that we will discuss now or in the near future. So in this particular presentation, we will focus on the Youth Truth Survey primarily, as well as the student focus group that has emerged, that has been meeting primarily with Ms. Kuklinski. I've had some engagement with them, but she has been meeting with them on an ongoing basis, and we'll see some other feedback here as well. Student profile, just the demographics, but I think we know those. And as far as the dashboard, as standardized testing or end of year testing comes online, maybe not next year, but in near term, some of these metrics will begin to be tracked more consistently the way they were pre-pandemic. Okay, so I want to start with the Youth Truth Survey, and I want to start with this very important marker. So I really took a lot of note on this one. And it's a very simple question, and you see the questions there. For elementary school students, how much has the virus changed your life? Interesting way of framing it. But secondary students, how has the COVID-19 pandemic affected you? Families would have seen how much has COVID-19 pandemic affected you? And staff, how much has COVID-19 pandemic affected you? So that was the core question. To that, among students, we saw 38% approximately responding the affirmative, which was down from last year, to be expected as conditions have improved, but still well over 1/3 citing an impact. Families, much higher. And even though those numbers are also down, you still see the effects. And lastly, staff, down, but nevertheless, half of our population, half of our staff responded in the affirmative. So I start with this question because it's very important to understand that though we are making incredible growth and steps toward normalizing and making sure that we're getting ourselves on track where we need to be around the day-to-day operations and just the feel of school, the effects of that are lagging. And I have to say they will lag and continue with us for an extended period of time. So I just want the board and the community to consider that this is still very much pressing and real for families. Moving along, this is broken up into kind of big picture trends and then very specific to individual students, individual partner groups, students, families, and staff namely. So if you look at the first one, you see there are 5 broad categories that are measured here: engagement, academic challenge, culture, belonging and peer collaboration, and relationships. This particular survey has been administered since 2017, so we now have longitudinal data, and you see there the trends. Some trends are mostly, on the whole, positive or trending in a positive direction, some incrementally so. And in certain instances, depending on the cohorts or the conditions of that year, you see some steps forward and some steps back. So we're gonna dig into these numbers a little bit and look at them in a 2-year comparison. Okay, last year to this year. So that's the next slide. What you see there is broken down by groups. You have students on the left column, center column is families and staff. So you have very different looks at these very different categories, right? The arrows pointing up or down are in the direction in which they point, indicates the growth or decline relative to the prior year. So for example, areas of growth, we have on the student side, academic challenge is up, okay? Academic challenge is up. The beliefs around that. Engagement is up, right? And then some incremental growth among staff and family in some important areas like relationships and relationships and engagement as well. However, there are specific areas that we have to make note of and that are very indicative of maybe some things to pay closer attention or understand better. Culture among students is down. Now that's relative to last year. Overall, that puts us pretty much in the ballpark of where we've been, but nevertheless, something to look for. Also amongst families, school safety. So that's an interesting phenomenon because communication and feedback is up, resources are up, and yet school safety is down. So it's just important to start looking at those relationships on a high level. first at a high level and then start to tease out what we can do about them. And then lastly, among staff, still pretty high marks in the areas of growth and improvement that we want to see that culturally are important. But then professional development and support took a little bit of a step back this year. We made a big bounce forward last year, and we came down just a bit now. So we're going to start looking at student voices first and the student perspective. Here's a breakdown by grade level. 5, 6, 7, 8 are the grades that are inclusive of this in this survey. And you see there, the overall trend is much, much stronger in grades 5 and 6. 7 and 8, 7 starts to wane, and 8 really is an area that is an area of growth for us. Now, some of this is consistent with prior years by cohort. And there's many conjectures about why that is. I think the experience of middle school certainly becomes very clear by the end of 6th into 7th and 8th, for sure. These are also distinctly different groups of kids, different cohorts. So all of them are going to have a different experience and a different opinion. Our 8th graders in particular would have had 2 years of their middle school experience very dramatically interrupted. And so that's something of note. So again, this is just these macro trends, but we do see a strong decline by the time we get to 8.
I have a quick question if
yes,
I may,
sir.
before we move on. Back on page 14. I'm trying to make sense of the student column versus the staff column. Are they asked, is the staff being asked, how do they perceive that the students' experience is, or how was their personal experience amongst their peers?
So the question will frame it about students and about the experience, but it's actually really both. Because it's their experience, particularly as you look at the professional development, that's really got geared toward students, but I'm sorry, toward themselves. But in most of these questions, they are geared toward, it's a combination of how they perceive students to be doing, but also how they themselves are doing relative to the community.
Because I'm curious, and for another time, but I look at relationships and cultures that there seems to be a vast divide, and how that's going to be talked about, discussed, and say, how do we come into congruency here?
Right.
So that you think that you're doing something good, but your students don't think that you're doing.
Correct. And we'll
That's
talk
nothing
about,
against teachers.
how we approach those conversations historically and how we've done that this year. Yeah, very fair points and questions.
Thank you.
On the family side, you see now it's the same distribution, but as we know, whereas in the student side, they're only in one grade level, the students are only responding for themselves. On the family side, they really might be responding for multiple grade levels, especially as you all well know, our families come with multiple children often, 2, 3, 4, or even 5. So they will represent their experience holistically. But this is the breakdown, and we see a little bit more coherence, a little bit more congruence there from one grade level to the other, but there are some definite patterns. For example, around school safety, that continues to be one of those things that we have to work on, we have to identify. Engagement, interestingly enough, engagement moves up from 6th through 8th, which is an interesting phenomenon that goes counter to how the students feel, right? The engagement drops from 6th to 8th, I'm sorry, from 5th through 8th, but it does the reverse. We've conjectured, or I will conjecture, that may have to do with 8th grade activities, or more specific activities where we're engaging families as a whole around these field trips, around activities, around just the expectations for the year. And of course, how students experience that engagement amongst the adults may be different. So I just point that out as in order to say there are trends that are not going to be all the way easy to explain, okay? But they're important to know. Lastly, staff voices. You see here the engagement continues to be strong, relationships as well. Professional development I think came back down a little bit to the prior year's average. And interestingly enough, it feels like every other year is kind of a bit of a swing if I look at these 5-year averages around there. But obviously, we are trying to, Ms. Kuklinski and I, as the administrative team, are trying to find ways of supporting professionals in areas, and we'll have more information on that here in a bit. Okay, so lastly, I wanted to just put forward this one because numbers tell one part of the story, students tell another. So over the last several months, in fact, we have met, and like I mentioned, Ms. Kuklinski has met, and here are the areas that the students themselves, through their input, and we met with well over 20 students of grades 6 through 8, and here are the high points that they highlighted for us within each category. What they wanted to do was be very positive, and to a person, to a kid, to a kiddo, to a young person, they were very, very, very mindful of the words they used, of the way they framed things, and of course, they were being very honest throughout. But it was just incredible to see how they articulated their thoughts, how they bounced ideas off each other, showed agreement or dissent. So they, in putting these together, they highlighted that the pieces of their experience that they wanted to continue, that they felt were strong, that they wanted to see more of. So for example, in engagement, they want to see more hands-on activities. They want to see connecting learning to life outside of school. On the other side, relationships, they appreciate daily check-ins with staff. They appreciate class meetings, staff showing up to extracurricular activities, teachers and staff understanding students' lives at home. That continued to be a thread that was pretty consistent. Fun activities with the teachers. That's something they cited. Whenever they have fun activities, they enjoy that. They find that to be connecting. And convo, that's their word, not my word, but I like the word. Conversations, dialogue, connection. I think in many ways, our students are asking for the very thing that we as adults want, is connection. The ability to be able to be seen, to be heard, to be appreciated, even if we're not at the place in which we all wish we were. And I think that's the through line here, among other things that, recently in our staff meeting, we shared this information and had a structured protocol with our staff. They've seen information like this before, but not quite shaped this way. And there was a lot of really important dialogue that started to emerge. So this will be the focal point of our ongoing conversation. We have a leadership retreat planned out for August 8th over the summer to continue to drive home this point, make sense of these things. And we have some ideas for next year on how to check in with kids more regularly, and some of which will be highlighted in just a moment. All right, so we talked last time around about the overall themes of the LCAP. They're listed here. I want to move forward 2 slides to start talking about some more focused ways of using our efforts and our resources. Number 1, under goal 1, ensuring a high academic achievement, we need to, and we will look to plan to expand early childhood education and learning support, including the staffing of the learning support specialist role that the board, the job description that the board approved last time around. We'll have some news for you on that very, very soon. Expansion of after-school programming to support grades TK1. How that will look is not quite entirely clear here, but we've certainly got an indication from our families that there's a desire and interest to move in that direction, and from the state to fund those initiatives. And lastly, instructional materials. And again, this is not a comprehensive list. I'm just trying to put a representative list. Instructional materials, we need to now move along with an adoption of new science curriculum. That has been something that has been on our radar for a couple of years. Pandemic came in, piloting materials was not easy or feasible, but now that we have ideally a better roadmap ahead, we're planning on moving forward with that aggressively. Goal 2, maintaining a collaborative culture of meaningful partnerships. We want to expand co-curricular and experiential learning, field trips, exposure to college and higher education as a staple of what we do. And not just talking about middle school. We want to be able to make that a continuum from the early grades on up. Next slide, please. For goal number 3, creating a welcoming and safe learning environment, we are increasing our social emotional support from 15 hours weekly of counseling 2 days plus a week to 24 hours this coming year. We have 2 excellent counselors on site that we've partnered with the county office. It took us a while to onboard the model, onboard the staff, and onboard the services. But now that we're here, we think there's a tremendous potential there and an important need. Obviously, we want to, the board has heard this before, increase psychologist support by 20% up to 80%. So 4 days a week having an on-site psychologist. That also will be a partnership. And lastly, on this one, implementing a social emotional curriculum. So we're looking at the second step curriculum, a curriculum that has been a supplemental curriculum that has been used here in years prior, that some of the teachers were piloting this year, 3rd grade, kinder, 8th, that there was a feeling that it could really help us deliver clear lessons around what we mean by collaborating, what we mean by treating others with respect in a more precise and common way. So there's some information here on the agenda for action. And lastly, goal 4, fostering a culture of professional growth. Right now, I've mentioned this stat to the board. 35% of our staff have 5 years or less of experience. So we are experiencing turnover. We've hired some tremendous new staff, but we need to continue to invest in their professional growth and development over time in order to ensure that they stay current with the practices needed. Lastly, we're going to continue with a partnership with Ventura County Office of Ed on CHAMPS training, specifically for our classified. That's what we've undertaken this year, but moving into certificated as well. Okay, so in terms of timeline for adoption, we're going to be bringing forward a draft proposal of the LCAP in June, and we have a special board meeting where we'll be looking to adopt. So with that said, that's my report. Feel free to, I will now turn it over to the board for any questions or comments.
Okay, thank you very much. Great presentation there. Any questions, comments, concerns at this time?
I
So-
guess my only comment, because I think this is something the whole state has been feeling, is that with school safety this past year, the kids, because of their social and, emotional needs, have come back to us with different personalities and different struggles than they had before. So our school, like every other, has been trying to help those kiddos that have been struggling getting back into a routine and adjusting well to working as a team and respecting adults and authority. And I think that that's one of those pandemic issues where we are struggling through like everybody else, but we are also going to make huge strides and improvements because of all of these other efforts and labors of love that we're trying to give these kids, and encouragement and activities and giving them these opportunities to be a part of a community. So while those numbers I think did take a hit, I think statewide those numbers are taking a hit.
Agreed, plus the addition of the extra social support and psychiatry, that'll really be helpful too, to help deal with some of those issues that the kids are struggling with.
Yeah. I also really like the fact that you're trying to reach out and have conversations with students. I think they really appreciate it.
Yeah, that became a fun experience. I wish I could have been at all those meetings, but we have a little video that some of our kiddos participated in that our staff saw.
I would like to participate in one of them. I wouldn't mind. I'd be interested.
Well, the tenor of the adults there is important, because not that they're going to be any less honest with anybody in the room, but I will say this: Ms. Kuklinski and I, in our own right, have tried to get to know the kids and open up a space, and they responded in kind. And we shared a little video with our staff that was made with some of their voices. When I asked them how many of them would be interested, I asked them this: how many of them would be interested in sharing their opinions and thoughts with the staff? About 3/4 of them, well over 20, raised their hand saying, I'd be interested in that. The level of maturity and confidence, but also the space that we're creating for kids, I think is going to bear a lot of fruit. So we'll find ways to get some input. Absolutely. Thank you.
Well, and I just want to say too, I think that group also grew because it wasn't just one meeting. They were meeting several times, several weeks. And I think that that word spread. And so that became a popular group to be a part of, where your voice could be heard. And so other kids did want to join in on that process, which I think is really encouraging as well.
Let me say this, it was a board priority, and I want to mention this, and I failed to include some pictures, but I have sent them in the memo. One of the ways quickly in which they saw their input addressed was in our lunch program. They asked for specific things that started to appear on the lunch menu. And listen, finding feedback from kids around lunch menus is no easy task, but I'm very grateful to our cafeteria staff who took their considerations into account, to the kids who offered it up in a very constructive and polite and respectful way, very positive. And thirdly, that we were able to very quickly act upon some of those requests because they were just easy to do and very small adjustments. The salad bar, the return of the salad bar was tremendous, but the ingredients in the salad bar was what kids started to see. They asked for more variety of dressings, for
Was it a
example.
Toppers pizza salad bar?
That's gonna be coming later. Don't ruin surprises here, Mrs. Romero. But there's been some very important things that we've put in place that have felt that have made the kids feel heard, valued, and like their opinion wasn't going into some abyss. And our partnership with Harry's Berries, family here, community here, phenomenal produce and phenomenal partnership that has just yielded a better result for kids, and they're noticing it. And that group of kids talked to each other, and they recognize, they say, we said that, and it happened. And that's what we want to see in our kids. And not everything is possible, or not everything can happen right away. But that was just one example of us taking some low-hanging fruit and running with it.
And just to clarify, this is only middle school kids, or is it also the younger crowd?
Only middle school for the time being. And we're going to get to the elementary as well, but we wanted to start with kids who are able to articulate the data a little differently, assimilate the data, because remember, we started with the Youth Truth Survey. We actually started with last year's Youth Truth Survey earlier in the year. And so making sense of that data requires a little bit of maturity on their part. And our 8th graders, our 6th grade, articulate, smart, they're all are, but this group in particular just developed the voice, and you see the input that they provided. And it's just great to see that that we're trying to put our actions behind them.
Congratulations on that.
All right, any other comments, questions? Okay, thanks again, Dr. Ramirez. Okay, so up to action discussion items. And so the first thing on the agenda for that is the consideration of the ratification of the contract amendments to the re-roofing project with Commercial Roofing Systems Incorporated. Can I get a motion to ratify the contract amendment?
I'll second.
Okay, have a second. All right, so this, Dr. Ramirez, this is the addendum to the contract for the roofing and variance and of increase in cost.
Yeah, there's an increase in cost, but it still falls within that that percentage of contingency percentage that the board identified well over a year, two years ago now.
Yeah, it was part of the bid pack.
Yep, part of the bid packet.
Which is building D.
So that's Mrs. Vollmert's wing, not Ms. Vollmert's wing, but the wing where Mrs. Vollmert is located. Those originally did not have rain gutters, but as we got some rain, we saw a need to address that because there was some puddling happening, and we wanted to avoid that. So it's the second one of the three.
Okay.
I think that was my question too, is if we had gutters before or if we did not, but we did not. Okay. And the good news is the more gutters we put in and downspouts, the more potential rain harvesting we can do.
All right, any other questions or discussion? All right, all those in favor of the ratification of the contract amendments to the re-roofing project with Commercial Roofing Systems Incorporated, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed, say none, carried 5-0. Yeah, my battery says it's getting low. Do we have a, can I plug in or something? It's just, if I can just plug it in, I think I'll be fine. Thank you. Okay, so next item is a consideration of approval of the proposal of Cameron and Company for the purchase of kitchen range and convection oven purchase. All right, can I get a motion for approval of the proposal?
I so move.
Okay.
I'll
can I get a
second that one.
Okay, second. And Dr. Mears, you want to just fill everybody in on what that entails?
Absolutely. Again, very much a partnership with BSA, with Mr. Dave Norris and with Miss Tammy Peterson. This is basically going to be replacing our kitchen range and our convection oven. Both of those units are well over 40 years old at this point. They're from the 70s. I know that. So in any event, they're going to be split funded between a kitchen grant that we received from the state, as well as suspend down funds in the cafeteria fund.
Are we doing that on purpose? Because the grant money was in excess of what this invoice is for. That's what I was wondering was, can we do something with that leftover grant money still, or is it gone? Okay.
And that grant is also, a portion of it is intended for training of our kitchen staff.
There's two.
Any further discussion, any other comments? Okay, all those in favor of the approval of the proposal for Cameron and Company for the purchase of kitchen range and convection oven, all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? None. Okay. Next item is a consideration of approval of the lease agreement with Univaco for the Geodetic monitoring station land use. I get a motion for approval of the lease agreement for the land use for the Geodetic monitoring station.
I move that we approve the lease agreement of the Univaco Inc. For the Geodetic monitoring station land use.
Motion.
Have a second? Any questions or discussion?
I'm kind of wondering, I know they're gathering data. Is the school getting anything for this lease in terms of either information or something of monetary value?
Is the question whether we're getting anything?
What are we getting out of the deal?
It's an in-kind partnership, so it's a nonprofit, so we are not getting anything in return. All we're doing is effectively allowing for the use of the land. It's renewed, the last time it was renewed was 15 years ago, so it is up for renewal. It's a good question. There was no monetary value associated to it the last time around, and there isn't one now.
Well, and then that's why I said information first. Like, do they also provide us not all of the information, but some sort of recap of what they've seen over the past 15 years, what they're expecting to look for? Like, do we get any information about our land?
I will look more closely at the MOU, because that what you're describing is a data share that we could very easily request if need be. I had the same thoughts that you did and how we create a nexus to learning here. So I haven't explored it quite that far yet, but I do know that I jumped at the chance of renewing it because it had been so long standing. And I don't want to turn up an opportunity that could yield results in the near future. So I will certainly explore what can come back by way of a partnership.
I think it would be a great experience if we could see some of that data, and then our own science classes could be thinking about some of that data. So I'm not sure how proprietary it is or not, but if it's not, I think it would be a great experience to build from.
Yeah, I will certainly, I was tracking in that direction, and I will look to do that. I just didn't want to let some time lapse. So that's why I'm bringing it forward now.
Well, I'm glad that we're renewing the lease. I remember when it started, but I always thought that there would be some data sharing. I'm also curious as to how many locations there are in our county, and how beyond just our location, but if we can get data from other sites inside the county, how it may compare. Because That's how I think as well. Aye. I move that we approve the certification of signatures for the period of July 1, 2022 through December 14, 2022.
Can we move this test to an annualized instead of semi-annual period? Because I feel like we just did that.
It has to do with the signatures associated. One of the signatures, for example, is Irene. And so when we have another person in hand, we'll have to bring this forward. So if everything else stays the same, we can certainly examine that, but they're based on the need and turnover.
Aye.
You guys are all muted.
So the first resolution is resolution number 21-22-14, which is temporary loans between district funds for the fiscal year 2022 to 2023. Can I get a motion for approval of that measure, of that resolution?
I so move.
Second? Second motion. Okay, any discussion?
I think if we can get a reminder from maybe Tammy or Dr. Ramirez that this is a annual thing that we do can.
Yeah, Ms. Peterson, can you just speak to the, basically it would be the,
Actually, I think there are 3 or 4 resolutions.
yes.
They're annual resolutions. They allow us to conduct business on behalf of NICEF, but they have to be reviewed annually.
Thanks for more housekeeping items. So any further questions or discussion regarding the resolution 21-22-14? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. This resolution 21-22-15 is the appropriation transfers for fiscal year 2022 to 2023. Can I get a motion for the approval of that resolution and adoption of that resolution? Okay, and second. Sullivan, any discussion or question? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, all opposed? And none is approved. And then resolution 21-22-16 is the authority for Mesa Union School District to improve compensation and benefits for certain categories of employees after July 1st, 2022. Can I get a motion for approval of the resolution 21-22-16?
I so moved.
Okay. Okay.
I'll second.
Questions, any discussion regarding this? Okay, all those in favor for the resolution 21-22-16, the authority for Mesa Union School District to improve compensation and benefits for certain categories of employees after July 1st, 2022. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. All right. Now under the subcategory of technology, we now have the consideration and approval of Apple Inc. Education Corp. For the purchase of iPads. Approval for the purchase of the iPad.
I move that we approve the purchase of the iPads. And as I recall it, there's 80 of them.
Correct.
Does that need to be in the motion? The quantity?
No, it's just a quote.
Can I get a second?
I'll second the motion.
Okay. All right. Any questions or discussion?
Just that this is the fee, the cost is being covered by a grant that we obtained, and then we're paying it back through the general fund, right? Or is it just coming?
Not this one. So what the grant enabled us to do is to cover, every year we budget for devices. This year, we repurposed part of that funding for the purchase of iPads. The other grant went to, or the grant that we received, the federal grant, went to the outfitting of all the Chromebooks that we'll be employing next year, which, by the way, we've already received. So these iPads specifically are going to be for grades TK1 because the devices that they have in their classrooms are, I'm afraid to say, past their expiration. So they're well over 5 years old at this point. And so the idea is to move us in a direction where we're 2 to 1 device for every 2 students.
So because I was confused, I was going to ask the same question. So this money is coming directly from general fund. It has nothing to do with the grant. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes. But the reason I bring up the grant is because we would have otherwise had to outfit additional Chromebooks or whatever devices. This allowed us to repurpose those funds and address a different need.
The funds were budgeted.
It's part of the LCAP, but were these funds that went into the general fund from the grant, or it's just coming from the general fund that was budgeted? And that's what I'm hearing, because in the write-up I saw the word grant, but it also says, it's coming from the general fund, and we're just looking for clarification.
Yeah,
Was one replenishing the other? Right.
So
You guys are all muting yourselves when you're talking.
we're able to purchase the iPads that are needed.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions or discussion regarding the purchase of the Apple iPad? All in favor of the approval of the Apple Inc. Education Board for the purchase of the iPads? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
5-0. All right, so next is under Education Student Services is the consideration of approval of the proposal for the Committee for Children on a 3-year license for the purchase of a supplemental social promotional learning program. I think you spoke with this during the.
yes. So the program is called Second Step. And by going with a 3-year license, we're saving about $400 annually, as opposed to going year to year. And the staff, the school leadership team in particular, felt that it was important for us to have a coherent approach to social emotional learning. One that, by the way, they're already familiar with because they had older editions and were already using, but we wanted to be coherent and bring all that current. The digital license is also far more efficient because it receives constant updates. It's actually cheaper than the print version. So we're opting for that license for that particular supplemental program.
A little ahead of ourselves there. Can I get a motion?
No,
for
I
the
move
approval?
to approve. I was gonna say, I move to approve the proposal for the Committee for Children, a 3-year license for the purchase of a supplemental social emotional learning program.
I'll second the motion.
Okay. Any further discussion or questions regarding this? Okay. All those in favor of the consideration of approval of the proposal for Committee of Children for the 3-year license for the purchase of supplemental social emotional learning program, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? None? Okay. All right. So next we have some fun things on the agenda. The consideration of approval of the following field trips. One is, first one is Pleasant Valley Recreation Park District Aquatic Center 8th grade promotional activity. Can I get a motion for approval of that?
I'll second that.
Second. All right. Any discussions, questions, concerns?
Can everybody swim who's going, or are we gonna hold liability for that?
We couldn't hear you.
Can you say that again, Krista? We couldn't hear you.
Is it, so it says aquatic center, so is that, I'm assuming that's like a swimming situation, so how do we make sure that everybody knows how to swim, so we're not liable? I mean, it sounds silly, but just curious.
It's a great question.
Not silly. We all asked the same question. So here's the answer.
So I will double check on this and triple check, but my understanding is that there will be lifeguards on duty, and there is a waiver that is signed off on by field trip permission form, but also a waiver by the facility as well.
Is this a trip that PFO or MEF is sponsoring?
No, this is, well, they support the cost of it, but it is not sponsored by them. It is a school sponsored trip.
Yeah, I saw that the total cost was somewhere around $500. There's $100 deposit. So if they don't get sufficient donations, the school will then cover the balance. Is that?
We've not had a problem receiving funding for that particular event in the past, is my understanding, not having been here in years prior. But it is already in the PFO budget. Your activities, it is.
Right, and to Ms. Nowak, the Pleasant Valley Aquatic Center is part of the Pleasant Valley Parks and Recs. It's a huge pool, Olympic size. They've got lifeguards in various depths so that people of all swimming capabilities can be there. They should have lifeguards, and I guess she's asking that we verify that they're going to be properly staffed for the size of group that we have.
That's the one over by.
Any further questions? Hold on.
Mrs. Nowak had a comment.
Is that the one that's over by Bob Kildee, Steve?
It is.
Okay, so I'm familiar with the pool. Okay, just curious. I used to do swim team there, but I mean, it's still not really, really shallow. So that's why I wonder.
No, it's a pool. It's a community pool. But they've got some other sections, and knowing some of our students, some of them may not swim either. So there will be a range, but to the point of a liability, we will double check on that.
Yes, that's always.
Okay, any other questions or discussion? Okay, all those in favor of approving the Pleasant Valley Recreation and Park District Aquatic Center 8th grade promotional activity, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, any opposed? None? All right, so then we also have the Six Flags Magic Mountain 8th grade celebration. I'll make a motion to approve that trip.
I move to approve.
Okay, can I get a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, any questions or discussion regarding the Six Flags Magic Mountain 8th grade graduation or celebration?
I know that this has been used as like a carrot in the past, so I'm just wondering if it's being used as a carrot again in the future. Meaning it's an incentive for everybody to turn in all their schoolwork for the year, so it's not, they have to qualify to attend the field trip.
So yes, it is. And in fact, all 8th grade activities really are, including promotion. I know we're talking specifically about this field trip, but in short, yes, this is something that students will either make themselves eligible for or not.
Okay, any other questions, discussion, concerns?
Yes.
Again, it has to do with funding, who's funding this, and because I thought is the school funding this, cost is like $43.30.
It's going to be a combination of PFO and parent donations, and that's typically been enough to get us the balance. That said, this is something that I'm keeping a close eye on, because as these activities continue into the future, any shortfall, yes, we would be tasked by the district, and I want to see what that looks like this year in order to better plan for next.
Okay, any other questions? Okay, all those in favor of the approving the field trip for the Six Flags Magic Mountain 8th grade celebration, all those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? Hearing none. All right, so next are the consideration and adoption of the March 2022 CSBA board policy revisions for the following sections as listed. Can I get a motion for the adoption of the 2022 CSBA board policy revisions?
I move that we adopt the March 2022 CSBA board policy revisions.
Can I get a second?
I'll second the motion.
Okay, any questions or any discussion regarding the CSBA board policy revisions? Okay, hearing none. All those in favor of the adoption of the March 2022 CSBA board policy revisions, all those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Okay, none. All right, moving on. Next item is personnel. So we have to talk about the consideration of the acceptance of the retirements of Alice Villa, the paraprofessional, effective June 30, 2022. Can you get a motion?
I move that we adopt the retirement for Alice Villa, paraprofessional, effective June 30th, 2022.
A second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any questions, any discussion? Okay.
We'll miss her as well. Just she's like Mrs. Ramirez.
Yeah, I know we're planning a,
Yeah, so what Mrs. V has 32 years, it's an incredible feat. And so we're planning on doing something similar, recognition for her, as well as for other district employees reaching anniversaries or milestones in the June meeting.
okay, any further discussion or questions regarding personnel item regarding Ms. Alice Villa? Okay, all those in favor of the acceptance of the retirements of Alice Villa, the paraprofessional, effective June 30, 2022. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Aye. Yeah. Understood. That's okay. Next item up for approval is the hiring of the following certificated and classified staff for the 2022-2023 year. We have Ms. Sarah Holcamp as a 1.0 full-time employee, temporary teacher. Larissa Malone has a 1.0 full-time employee, temporary teacher, and these are all effective July 1st, 2022. Jessica Barroso, 0.45 FTE, intervention teacher, effective July 1st, 2022. Jennifer Ortiz as a 0.73 paraprofessional, effective July 1st. Also, Alejandra Cabrera has a 0.69375 FTE paraprofessional, effective July 1st, and Jennifer Romero as a 0.75 paraprofessional. Rob Wiggins as a 0.75 facilities worker, and Paula Ruiz as a 0.375 FTE food service worker, effective all July 1st. Can I get a motion for the approval of those hirings? Can I get a second?
Second the motion.
Okay. All those in favor of the approval of the hirings is listed. All those in favor, or I'm sorry, any discussion or questions? I skipped over that part. Jamie, did you have your hand up? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed? Okay, none. So there's an item, another item that was on here is the consideration of the acceptance of the resignation of Mr. Richard Rosen, the PE teacher, physical education teacher, effective June 30, 2022. Sorry, that was the email edition.
Yes, that was late ad, just to try to move ahead with posting and hiring.
I move that we accept the resignation of Richard Rosen, physical education teacher, effective June 30th, 2022.
I'll second.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, any questions or discussion? Okay, all those in favor of the acceptance of the resignation of Mr. Richard Rosen, effective June 30, 2022. All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay, accepted. All right, so now moving on to items for future consideration. We have the LCAP accountability plan public hearing, which is set for June 14th, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and then we have the, I don't know, the 2021-22 budget hearing. Is that the public hearing? Is that also set for the 14th?
Yes,
Okay,
the 14th, and that will be the LCAP and the budget.
okay. And then our future meetings is listed below, the Tuesday, June 14th. Tuesday should be the regular, which will have the public hearing.
Yes, Tuesday is the regular, and that was agendized that way, and special will be a brief meeting on the 16th.
And that's, note that that's at 5 p.m., not 6 p.m.
Correct.
Okay. All right. That's it. Okay, we are adjourned at 8:17. Thank you, everyone, for attending, and thank you, Ms. Sullivan. I know you got to run. Strong work.
Thank you. Stop recording. Stop recording.
I think you guys have the longest meeting of all the schools.
We have the longest, long agenda, don't we? Like to talk.